Hello and welcome to Angelo's Reviews, and today I'll be reviewing the concert I saw last night at the Brangwyn Hall in Swansea, featuring violinist Veronika Eberle, the BBC National Orchestra of Wales, conducted by guest conductor Alexandre Bloch. Now, the BBC now delivered a very interesting programme, and it was a mixture of classical, some contemporary music and some late romantic stuff. So the first half just featured Ludwig van Beethoven's incredible violin concerto. Now, Beethoven's violin concerto, as we all know, is an incredible masterpiece. It was never fully realised in its premiere. Like, many people didn't really regard it as anything that special at the time of its premiere, but it was the great violinist Joseph Joachim that brought it to worldwide fame. Now, this performance last night, I thought, was very 50-50. The violinist, Veronika Eberle, was simply outstanding. Her playing was absolutely exquisite. Her technique and precision was immaculate. She's definitely one of the greatest violinists I've seen live, that's for sure. Her playing was just absolutely incredible. And she also included into the concerto, she also used the cadenzas written by Jörg Widmann, which I listened to before. I listened to beforehand. I listened to her recording of the one with the LSO and Sir Simon Rattle, since she did the Jörg Widmann cadenzas with them, and I didn't know whether I didn't know whether to expect them or not. Part of me was, part of me wasn't, because I was reading the program notes online. They didn't mention anything, so it was a little bit of a surprise. But I'm glad we got to hear the Jörg Widmann cadenzas, since they're not heard very often. I thought they were incredibly fantastic. It's quite hard to explain, really, but everything made very sense. Everything made a lot of sense with these cadenzas. Jörg Widmann quoted Beethoven's material, which is very good, and I also like the inclusion that Jörg Widmann writes not just for the solo violinist, but also for the principal double bass, the timpanist, and the concertmaster. And I thought the cadenzas were just simply fascinating. It may be bothersome for some people, since the concerto is extended by at least another 10 minutes, but I found them fascinating. However, the orchestra, whenever the orchestra were playing, I thought Alexandre Bloch throughout the whole concert, was sometimes a bit too much, a bit too showy. I thought it was very distracting for the listener. It's okay for someone who is let's say someone who's new to classical music. They may like that sort of thing. But for some people who just want to really listen, like myself for instance, sometimes watching a conductor who is a bit too overly expressive with his gestures sometimes puts you off a little bit. And I thought, well, he wasn't too bad in Benjamin. He wasn't that bad in Benjamin. And his overly expressive gestures weren't too bad in the Strauss either. But it was just in the Beethoven, where the Beethoven is written for quite a small orchestra as well. So you don't really need these huge gestures. But it's not just the gestures as well, which bothered me, let's say. But also, I thought the orchestra weren't at their best in the concerto. They certainly redeemed themselves in the second half. But Alexandre Bloch's vision of the piece, first of all, this is down to personal preference, so you may have different preferences to me, but I am not the biggest fan of when an orchestra plays music from the classical era and they don't use vibrato for the strings. I don't really see why they do that, For me, it just makes the music sound a bit unappealing. That's just my view. Feel free to have your own view. But, and another thing, which I think is a very important issue to bring up, is clarity. there was not much clarity at all. The piece, I've got my score here so I can check, is only written for the solo violin, of course, and the strings, flute, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, 2 horns, 2 trumpets, and timpani. So it's not a lot. And even though there's a lot more string players, there was no clarity. There was no clarity. Like, for example, in the beginning of the piece, when we got the orchestral introduction, one bit here. Here, we got this D minor section here at bar 51. So if you can see at the end of the page here, you got the strings like that, and you got the trumpets holding, well, it's a concert A, but in here is they're actually playing a G. But anyway, all I could hear were the trumpets. And you're supposed to hear the other string material as well. I couldn't hear every single part going on, and it's so important in this type of music when you got so, less instruments as well. So that is another thing. So overall for this performance, I found it was very 50-50. Veronika Eberle was simply breathtaking, but the orchestra weren't at their best form. However, they did redeem themselves in the George Benjamin. I found the George Benjamin to be absolutely fascinating. George Benjamin's Concerto for Orchestra was written as he dedicated it to his late friend and composer Oliver Knessen. And the way he wrote this piece, was before I saw this concert, was reading the score online, followed the score online. And everything is just so detailed. So George Benjamin was very, very specific about what he wanted. And I thought the result was quite breathtaking. It's hard to explain actually, because over the years I've only grown to appreciate contemporary music more. Some contemporary pieces I'm still, not the biggest fan of, but somehow everything made sense. Everything made sense in this piece. So I really enjoy that. And then Strauss's Tod und Verklärung, Death and Transfiguration. Now, the BBC Now really, really, really played their socks off in this. Alexandre Bloch didn't have a score, so he knew this piece off by heart. And the result was simply breathtaking for the most part. The opening was very ominous, mysterious, The timpanist, the timpanist. The timpanist, principal timpanist, Steve Bernard, he was very good most of the time. But there was one particular bit in the middle section. It's, I got my score here. I use my scores so I don't say anything wrong. So I always got the score to back my evidence up. But it's in the score here somewhere. It's towards the, let's say, 13-14 minute mark of the piece. You got this really, you got the happy bit going on, where the old man in the tone poem reflects back on his life, but then death is striking back at him. And at one point you got the trombones going bum bum ba 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 ba, and then the timps have got these really powerful, B notes on here, they're accented notes, bum bum bum, and then at one point I go ba 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 brrr, like that. Okay, well, he came in a bar early, and it was quite noticeable actually. So that was quite out of the blue. I didn't expect it. It was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? But he then redeemed himself. I could see his facial expressions quite clearly, and he looked a little bit puzzled a lot of the time. But anyway, aside from the timp situation, I thought the playing was simply breathtaking. Principal tuba, well, no, he wasn't the principal tuba. He was a guest tuba. The tuba player, oh my goodness, never heard a tuba player like it. he really played his socks off, and I thought the trumpets in particular were absolutely stunning. The strings were gorgeous and sublime throughout, and it was breathtaking. Alexandre Bloch again was quite showy, but as long as he delivered a very, very good performance, that's all that matters really. The gestures don't really matter if the performance is great. I mean, look at Leonard Bernstein. Leonard Bernstein was very showy, but his performances were absolutely outstanding. But last night, the Tod und Verklärung was just absolutely outstanding. I thought it was a really, really good performance. So yeah, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed, and take care.